The night air is still. It moves slowly across the wide, quiet surface of the Nile, touching the water as gently as a breath. The river does not hurry. It never has. It glides through the land with a soft and patient motion, reflecting the stars above like small points of light resting on its surface. Along its banks, the earth is dark and rich. Even in the dim light, you can sense its depth. This soil has been shaped by water, by time, by countless seasons that have come and gone without noise or interruption. Everything here follows a rhythm. A long, unbroken rhythm that does not ask to be noticed. If you listen carefully, there are sounds. Very soft sounds. The faint brushing of reeds against one another. The distant call of a night bird. The gentle movement of water against the shore. And somewhere, not far from the river's edge, there is a cluster of small homes. They are made of mud brick, simple and strong. Their walls hold the coolness of the night, protecting those inside from the slow change of temperature that will come with the rising sun. Inside one of these homes, a man sleeps. His body is still, resting on a woven mat laid across the floor. The room around him is nearly empty. A clay jar sits in one corner. A small bundle of belongings rests nearby. Nothing more is needed. His breathing is slow and even. Outside, the sky begins to change. The darkness softens. A faint gray light spreads along the horizon, almost unnoticed at first. Then, gradually, it grows. Morning is arriving. The man opens his eyes. He does not move right away. There is no sudden urgency. Only a quiet awareness that the day has begun again, just as it did before, and will continue in much the same way. He sits up slowly. The air inside the room is cool, carrying a faint earthy scent from the walls. He listens for a moment. There are already signs of movement outside. Someone walking. A door shifting open. The soft clink of pottery being handled with care. He stands. His feet touch the ground without sound. He steps outside, and the early light meets him gently. The sky is pale now, with a soft wash of gold beginning to spread. Around him, others are waking. A woman crosses a small open space carrying a jar. A child lingers near a doorway, still wrapped in sleep. Another man moves toward the path that leads to the fields, his posture quiet and familiar. There is no rush. The day will be long, and it does not need to begin quickly. The man begins to walk. The path beneath him is firm but uneven, shaped by many feet over time. Dust lifts slightly with each step, then settles again just as quietly. Ahead, the Nile stretches wide and calm. It is always there. It does not change its place. It does not forget its purpose. It gives water, and with it, life. And in return, the people shape their days around its presence. As the man reaches the edge of the river, he pauses. The surface is smooth, broken only by the smallest ripples. The reflection of the sky shifts as the light grows stronger. A bird moves across the water, leaving a thin line behind it. He kneels. His hands dip into the river, lifting water that feels cool against his skin. He washes slowly, without waste, without excess. Every movement is simple, deliberate, and practiced. Nearby, others do the same. They do not speak much. Words are not needed in these early moments. The quiet of morning is something shared, something understood without explanation. After a short time, the man rises again. His work is waiting. It always is. He turns away from the river and follows the path toward the fields. The land opens up as he walks, revealing wide stretches of dark soil that have recently been softened by the Nile's flood. This is the season of growth. The water has come and gone, leaving behind everything needed for the crops to take root. Now, it is time for the people to do their part. In the distance, figures are already moving. Some guide wooden plows pulled by oxen. Others walk slowly across the fields, scattering seeds by hand. Their motions are steady, careful, and unhurried. The man joins them. No instructions are spoken. None are needed. Each person knows their role, their place within the work. This knowledge has been passed down, repeated, and lived through many times before. He takes hold of a simple tool. The wood is worn smooth from use. It fits easily in his hand, as if it has always belonged there. He presses it into the soil and begins. The earth yields without resistance. It breaks apart in soft, dark lines, ready to receive what will be planted. The man moves forward step by step, his body falling into a rhythm that does not need to be forced. Around him, the same rhythm continues. The oxen move slowly, their strength steady and dependable. The sound of the plow cutting through soil blends with the quiet footsteps of those walking behind. Seeds fall in gentle arcs, disappearing into the ground. Above, the sun rises higher. Its light grows warmer, spreading evenly across the land. Shadows shorten. The coolness of the morning begins to fade, replaced by a gentle heat that will stay for many hours. Still, the work continues. There is no change in pace. No sudden movement. Only the steady repetition of small actions that, together, shape the day. Time stretches in this place. It does not feel sharp or divided. It moves like the river, slow, continuous, and without interruption. The man does not count the hours. He does not need to. The position of the sun, the feeling in his body, the quiet signals of the world around him, these are enough. At some point, he pauses. Only for a moment. He straightens his back and looks across the field. Others are still working, their forms moving gently against the light. No one stops for long. The rhythm holds them, carries them forward. He takes a slow breath. The air is warmer now, filled with the scent of soil and growing plants. A light breeze passes through, softening the heat for just a moment before moving on. Then, he returns to his work. The tool meets the earth again. The motion resumes. Step by step. Not far away, along the edge of the settlement, another part of life unfolds just as quietly. Inside a small home, a woman kneels on the ground. Before her is a flat stone, smooth from years of use. On it rests a small pile of grain. She leans forward and begins to grind it, moving a smaller stone back and forth in slow, even strokes. The sound is soft. A steady, gentle scraping that repeats again and again. Her movements are calm. There is no tension in them. No urgency. This work, like the work in the fields, follows its own pace. It cannot be rushed. It must be done carefully, patiently. As she works, light enters the room. It falls across the floor in a narrow line, growing wider as the sun rises. Dust moves through the air, visible only when it passes through this light. The woman does not look up. Her focus remains on the grain, on the slow transformation taking place beneath her hands. Bit by bit, it becomes finer, softer, ready to be turned into bread. Nearby, a small fire begins to burn. Thin strands of smoke rise and drift toward the open doorway. The scent spreads quietly, mixing with the warm air. Outside, footsteps pass. Voices, low and distant, move through the space and fade away. The day is fully awake now. And across the land, in fields, in homes, along the river's edge, the same pattern continues. Work. Rest for a moment. Work again. A life shaped not by sudden change, but by repetition. A life that moves gently, steadily, within the rhythm of the Nile. And as the sun climbs higher into the sky, the quiet labor of many unseen hands continues, forming the foundation of a world that, even now, still stands in silence. The sun continues its slow climb. Its light spreads evenly across the fields, touching every surface with a steady warmth. The earth begins to lose the coolness it held through the night, and the air becomes softer, heavier, yet still calm. In the field, the man keeps working. His movements have settled into a quiet rhythm that no longer requires thought. The tool presses into the soil, lifts, and presses again. Step after step, the pattern continues, as natural as breathing. Around him, others move in much the same way. No one speaks loudly. Words, when they come, are low and brief, carried away quickly by the open air. Most of the time, there is only the sound of work itself, the soft breaking of soil, the slow movement of feet, the occasional shift of an ox turning at the end of a row. This kind of labor is familiar. It is not new to any of them. Many here were born into this life. They learned its patterns from an early age, watching, listening, and slowly joining in as their bodies grew strong enough to keep pace. Others came from different places. Long before this morning, before this field, before even this land, their lives followed different paths. Some were taken during conflicts between regions. Others were brought as part of trade, exchanged like goods between those with power. Over time, their pasts grew quieter. The details faded, softened by distance and by the steady repetition of new days. The land beside the Nile became the center of everything. The work became the shape of life itself. Still, small differences remain. In the way someone ties a simple garment. In the rhythm of a step. In a word spoken slightly differently before it blends into the common sound of the place. But these differences do not interrupt the flow. The day moves forward, holding everyone within the same slow pattern. As the morning deepens, the heat becomes more noticeable. It does not arrive suddenly. It builds, gently but persistently, settling across the land like a thin, invisible layer. The sun is not harsh yet, but its presence is steady and unavoidable. The man feels it on his skin. A light warmth at first, then something more constant. Sweat begins to form, small and quiet, carried away by the occasional breeze. Still, he continues. The work does not stop when the air grows warm. It simply adjusts. Movements become slightly more measured. Energy is used carefully, saved where it can be. At the edge of the field, a small group gathers for a brief pause. They sit close to the ground, seeking what little shade can be found. One of them holds a simple container of water. It is passed slowly from hand to hand, each person taking only what is needed. There is no waste. Water is too valuable for that. The Nile gives much, but even its gifts must be respected. The man joins them for a moment. He lowers himself onto the earth, feeling its warmth beneath him. When the container reaches him, he lifts it carefully and drinks. The water is cool compared to the air, and for a brief moment, it brings a sense of relief. He does not linger. After a short rest, he rises again, returning to his place in the field. The others do the same. The pause fades as quietly as it began. Work resumes. Not far away, in another part of the land, the sounds of labor take a different form. Stone meets stone. A dull, steady tapping echoes through the air, slower than the rhythm of the fields but just as constant. Here, a group of workers shapes blocks of limestone, preparing them for use in structures that will stand far longer than any single lifetime. The work is precise. Each strike is controlled. Each edge is shaped with care. Dust rises with every impact, settling slowly on skin, on tools, on the ground itself. Among these workers are men who, like those in the fields, live under obligation. Their days are directed. Their time is not entirely their own. Some of them sleep in simple shelters nearby, close to the site of their work. Others are brought here for a season, then return to different tasks when the need changes. Their lives move where they are told to move. And yet, even here, there is a kind of routine that offers quiet stability. The same tools are lifted each day. The same motions are repeated. The same sun rises and falls above them, marking time in the only way that truly matters. Back in the settlement, the woman who began grinding grain continues her work. The pile before her has changed. What was once rough and whole has become fine and soft. She gathers it carefully, placing it into a small container. Another portion of grain takes its place, and the motion begins again. Back and forth. Back and forth. The fire nearby has grown stronger. Its warmth fills the small space, and the smell of baking begins to take shape. Dough is pressed and shaped with steady hands, then placed near the heat to cook slowly. The process is simple. It does not change. And yet, it is essential. Without it, those in the fields, those at the river, those working with stone, none could continue. A child enters the space quietly. Small feet move across the floor, hesitant at first, then more certain. The child watches for a moment, observing the familiar motions, the quiet focus. There is no need for instruction. In time, the child will learn, just as others have learned before. The knowledge will pass gently, without force, carried through repetition and careful attention. Outside, the light has grown strong. The sky is clear, wide, and open. The sun now sits higher, its warmth more fully present. The village hums with quiet activity. Not loud, not hurried, but steady. A man repairs a tool near the edge of a path, smoothing a rough edge with patient hands. Another carries a bundle of reeds, placing them carefully beside a structure that will need them later. Every movement has purpose. Even the smallest task fits into a larger pattern. And through it all, those bound to labor continue their roles. Their lives are not separate from this place. They are woven into it. Their work supports the homes, the fields, the storehouses, and the larger systems that reach beyond what can be seen from any single point. Yet their own lives remain simple. Meals are modest. Rest is brief. Comfort is found in small, quiet moments rather than in anything grand. As the day moves closer to its middle, the heat settles more firmly over the land. Shadows grow short. The air becomes still. In the field, the man slows slightly. Not stopping, but adjusting. Each movement is deliberate now, conserving energy, maintaining balance between effort and endurance. This is how the day is carried forward. Not through force, but through careful pacing. Not through urgency, but through steady continuation. And so the hours pass, almost unnoticed, as the sun reaches its highest point, and the quiet labor of many lives continues beneath it, unchanged, unbroken, and deeply woven into the rhythm of ancient Egypt. The sun now rests high above the land. Its light falls straight down, clear and unwavering. Shadows grow small and gather close to the feet of those who move across the fields. The air feels heavier, as if it has slowed along with everything beneath it. This is the quiet middle of the day. In the fields, the man continues his work, though his pace has softened. Each movement is careful now, shaped by the steady warmth that presses gently against his skin. The tool in his hand rises and falls with less force, but with the same purpose. Around him, others adjust in the same way. No one stops entirely. The work continues, but it bends slightly to the will of the sun. Bodies lean less, steps shorten, and breath becomes more measured. It is not a struggle. It is an understanding, something learned over many seasons beneath this same sky. A faint breeze moves across the land. It arrives quietly, brushing over the surface of the soil, passing through the low plants, and touching the workers for only a moment before slipping away again. Even this small movement brings a sense of relief, brief but noticeable. The man pauses once more. This time, he does not sit. He simply stands still, allowing his body to rest while remaining upright. His gaze moves across the field, not searching for anything, but simply observing what is already there. The slow movement of others. The steady line of planted rows. The distant shimmer of the Nile, visible where the land dips slightly and opens toward the water. Everything remains as it should be. After a short moment, he returns to his work. The rhythm resumes, quiet and dependable. Not far from the fields, along a narrow path that leads toward a larger structure, a small group of workers walks together. Their steps are slow, but steady. They carry simple loads, bundles of materials, tools worn smooth from use, small containers that hold what they will need for the next part of the day. Their destination is a building site. Here, the work is different from that of the fields, but it follows the same careful pace. Large stones rest on the ground, some already shaped, others waiting. Ramps of packed earth rise gradually, allowing heavy blocks to be moved upward with effort shared among many hands. The workers take their places. There is no loud command, no sharp signal. The beginning of work is understood without words. Hands find their positions. Shoulders lean into ropes. Feet press firmly into the ground. Then, slowly, the movement begins. A stone shifts. Not quickly, not easily, but steadily. The group moves as one, each person contributing a small part of the effort. The sound is low, a soft grinding of weight against earth, a faint strain of rope, the quiet exhale of breath released in unison. This work requires patience. It cannot be rushed. Each step forward is gained through balance and coordination, not force alone. Among these workers are those who live under strict direction. Some have been assigned here for long periods. Others move between tasks depending on the needs of those in control. Their lives are shaped by these movements, guided by decisions made beyond their reach. And yet, within the work itself, there is a kind of shared experience. They move together. They pause together. They continue together. In these moments, the boundaries between them soften slightly, replaced by the simple act of completing what is set before them. Back in the settlement, the woman has finished preparing the bread. Small, flat pieces rest near the fire, their surfaces firm and lightly browned. She gathers them carefully, placing them aside to cool. The air inside the room is warm now. The fire has done its work, and its heat lingers. Outside, the brightness of the day presses against the doorway, creating a strong contrast between light and shadow. She steps outside briefly. The ground is warm beneath her feet. She looks toward the path, watching as people pass, each one moving through their own tasks. Some carry water. Others return from the fields for a short rest. The day is at its fullest. Everything is in motion, yet nothing feels hurried. Nearby, a small group sits together in the shade of a low wall. They eat slowly, breaking pieces of bread, sharing what little they have. There is no excess, but there is enough. The act of eating is quiet, almost reflective, as if it offers a brief pause not just for the body, but for the mind as well. The woman joins them. She sits without speaking, taking a small portion for herself. The bread is simple, its taste familiar and steady. It does not change from day to day, and in that sameness, there is a quiet comfort. After a time, the group begins to rise again. The pause is over. The work will continue. In the fields, the man senses the same shift. Though he has not left his place, he feels the slow turning of the day. The moment of rest has passed, and the rhythm begins to strengthen once more. His movements become slightly more certain. The tool presses deeper into the soil. His steps regain a steady pace. The heat remains, but his body has adjusted to it, finding a balance that allows the work to continue. Above, the sun begins its gradual descent. It is not yet low, but its position has changed in a way that is felt more than seen. The light softens just slightly, losing a small part of its intensity. This change is subtle, but it is enough. The afternoon has begun. With it comes a quiet sense of endurance. The longest part of the day has passed, but there is still more to be done. The work does not end quickly. It stretches forward, asking for the same steady effort that has carried it this far. And so, across the land, the pattern continues. In the fields, hands move through soil. At the building site, stones shift slowly into place. Within the homes, food is prepared, tools are maintained, small tasks are completed with care. Each action is part of something larger. Something that does not need to be spoken to be understood. The lives of those bound to labor remain simple, yet deeply connected to this wider system. Their efforts support structures they may never fully enter, and sustain a way of life that extends far beyond their own small spaces. Still, within their own moments, there is a quiet presence. A way of moving through the day that is steady, patient, and calm. As the afternoon light begins to stretch across the ground, shadows slowly lengthen again, reaching outward in soft lines. The air shifts. The heat begins, little by little, to ease. And the long, quiet work of the day continues beneath the changing sky, carried forward by many hands, each one moving in time with the slow and endless rhythm of the Nile. The afternoon moves forward with quiet patience. The sun, no longer at its highest point, begins a slow and almost unnoticeable descent. Its light softens, becoming less direct, though the warmth still lingers across the land like a thin, steady layer. In the fields, the man feels the change. It is subtle, but familiar. The sharp weight of midday has eased, replaced by a gentler heat that allows the body to move with a little more freedom. His steps lengthen slightly. His shoulders relax, though the work remains the same. He continues. The soil still yields beneath his tool. The rows extend further, shaped by the steady repetition of motion. Around him, others move in quiet harmony, each person maintaining their place within the shared task. There is a sense of endurance now. Not strain, but continuation. The hardest part of the day has passed, yet the work stretches on, asking for the same calm persistence that has carried it this far. a bird crosses the sky overhead. Its wings move slowly, gliding through the warm air before it disappears beyond the edge of the field. For a brief moment, the man's gaze follows it, then returns to the ground before him. There is always something to be done. Near the far edge of the fields, a narrow canal reflects the light of the sun. The water there is still, drawn from the Nile and guided carefully across the land. It nourishes the crops, reaching places the river itself cannot touch. A worker stands beside it, adjusting a simple barrier made of packed earth. With slow movements, he directs the flow, allowing water to pass into one section while holding it back from another. This task requires attention, but not urgency. The water moves at its own pace, and the work follows that same gentle rhythm. These systems, though simple in appearance, are carefully maintained. They are part of a larger understanding of the land, an understanding built over many years, passed quietly from one generation to the next. And within this system, those bound to labor play their part. Their hands guide the water. Their efforts shape the fields. Their days follow the needs of the land, just as the land follows the cycle of the river. Not far away, at the building site, the work continues with steady focus. The large stone that was being moved earlier now rests slightly higher than before. Its progress has been slow, but certain. The workers gather around it once more, adjusting their positions, preparing for the next careful shift. Ropes are tightened. Feet press into the ground. A quiet signal passes among them, not spoken, but understood. Then, together, they move. The stone slides forward a small distance, its weight felt by every person involved. The effort is shared, divided evenly across many bodies. No single individual carries the burden alone. This is how such work is done. Not through sudden strength, but through steady cooperation. Dust rises gently as the stone settles into its new position. The workers pause, breathing slowly, allowing their bodies to recover before continuing again. Their lives are shaped by this rhythm. Work, pause, work again. There is little variation, yet within this repetition, there is a kind of quiet structure that holds everything in place. Back in the settlement, the afternoon light enters the homes at a different angle now. It stretches across the floor in long, soft lines, touching objects that were hidden in shadow earlier in the day. The air feels less heavy, and a faint movement of wind passes through open doorways. The woman who prepared the bread earlier now turns her attention to other tasks. She gathers small items that need repair, perhaps a piece of cloth, worn thin from use, or a simple tool that requires adjustment. Her hands move carefully, guided by experience rather than thought. Each motion is slow and precise. There is no need to hurry. These small acts of maintenance are part of the daily rhythm, just as important as the larger tasks carried out in the fields or at the building site. Nearby, the child who watched her earlier now plays quietly. There are no elaborate toys, no crafted objects meant only for amusement. Instead, the child uses what is available: a small stick, a smooth stone, the patterns in the dust. The play is gentle. It does not disturb the stillness of the afternoon. From time to time, the child glances toward the adults, observing their movements, learning without being taught directly. In this way, knowledge begins to take shape long before it is needed. Outside, the village continues its steady motion. A man returns from the river carrying a fill jar, holding it carefully to avoid spilling even a small amount. Another adjusts a simple shelter, reinforcing its structure with fresh reeds. Every action fits into the day without drawing attention to itself. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. As the sun lowers further, the light begins to change once more. It becomes warmer in color, softer in its reach. The edges of shadows blur slightly, stretching longer across the ground. The air cools just enough to be noticed, though the warmth of the day has not yet fully left. In the fields, the man senses the approach of evening. Not through any sudden signal, but through a gradual shift in everything around him. The light, the air, the quiet slowing of movement, all of it speaks in a language that does not require words. His work begins to draw toward a natural pause. The rows he has been tending reach a point that feels complete for the day. He finishes the last small section before him, pressing the tool into the soil one final time before lifting it free. He stands still for a moment. Not out of fatigue alone, but out of habit. This brief pause marks the transition from labor to rest, from the open work of the day to the quieter hours that will follow. Around him, others do the same. One by one, the movements begin to slow. Tools are lowered. Steps become less purposeful, more relaxed. The shared rhythm of work gently unwinds, releasing its hold. There is no sudden end. Only a gradual fading. The man turns toward the path that leads back to the settlement. His steps are steady, though slightly heavier now. The day has left its mark on his body, but not in a way that feels unfamiliar. This is a feeling he knows well, one that comes and goes with each passing day. As he walks, the land around him grows quieter. The sounds of labor fade into the background, replaced by softer, more scattered noises, the call of birds returning to their resting places, the distant murmur of voices, the gentle movement of water. The Nile reflects the changing sky. Its surface glows with the warm tones of the lowering sun, shifting slowly as the light continues to soften. It remains constant, as it always has, holding within it the same quiet presence that has guided life here for so long. The man reaches the edge of the settlement. Homes stand in quiet rows, their forms simple and familiar. Smoke rises lightly from a few small fires, drifting upward before disappearing into the evening air. He steps into this space without hesitation. This is where the day ends. Not in silence, but in a different kind of stillness. A stillness shaped by rest, by small shared moments, by the quiet closing of another day beneath the wide and patient sky. And as the sun continues its slow descent, the lives of those who labored from morning until now begin to settle, preparing to move gently into the calm and quiet hours of the evening. The sun lowers further, nearing the edge of the land. Its light becomes softer now, spreading in warm shades of gold and pale orange. The heat of the day begins to loosen its hold, and the air slowly cools, carrying with it a quiet sense of relief. Across the fields, the last movements of work come to an end. Tools are lifted and set aside. The soil, freshly turned and planted, rests in long, even rows. The effort of the day remains there, pressed into the earth, waiting patiently for what will come next. The man walks back along the familiar path. His steps are unhurried. There is no longer a task pulling him forward, no need to measure his pace against the work. The path beneath his feet feels softer now, the dust settling gently as he moves. Around him, others return as well. They come from different directions, some from the fields, others from the river, and some from the distant building site where stone met stone throughout the day. Their movements are quiet, shaped by the same steady fatigue. No one rushes ahead. No one lingers too far behind. They simply walk, each person carrying the weight of the day in their own way. As they approach the settlement, small signs of evening life begin to appear. Fires are being tended. Thin lines of smoke rise into the softening sky, their scent spreading lightly through the air. The smell is familiar: wood, dry reeds, and the faint trace of cooking food. It is a scent that marks the end of work. The man steps into the space between the homes. The ground here is worn smooth from many passing feet. The walls of the houses hold the warmth of the day, releasing it slowly as the air cools. He pauses for a moment. Not because he must, but because the change from open field to quiet settlement brings a natural stillness with it. The sounds are different here: closer, softer, more contained. A voice speaks nearby, low and calm. Another answers. The exchange is brief, almost like a passing breeze, and then it fades. The man moves toward his home. Inside, the space feels familiar and unchanged. The woven mat rests where it always has. The clay jar stands in its place. Nothing has shifted beyond what is needed. The woman is there. The bread she prepared earlier is now ready to be eaten. It rests in a simple container, its surface slightly firm, its warmth mostly gone. She does not speak immediately. There is no need. The rhythm of the day does not require many words. Understanding passes quietly between them, carried by routine rather than conversation. They sit. The act of sitting itself brings a kind of calm. The body, which has been in motion for so many hours, begins to settle. Muscles release their tension slowly. Breathing becomes deeper, more even. The man takes a piece of bread. He eats without hurry, breaking it into smaller portions, chewing slowly. The taste is simple, unchanged from the day before and the day before that. And yet, it is enough. Nearby, others do the same. Small groups gather just outside their homes, sitting close to the ground, sharing what little they have. The sounds of eating are quiet, soft movements, low voices, the gentle passing of food from one hand to another. Children move among them. Some are still full of energy, their steps light despite the long day. Others grow quiet, their movements slowing as sleep begins to approach. One child leans against an adult, resting without fully closing their eyes. The evening carries a different rhythm. It is slower, softer. The urgency of the day has faded, replaced by a gentle sense of completion. Beyond the settlement, the Nile reflects the sky once more. The bright light of afternoon has softened into a deeper glow. The surface of the water holds these colors, shifting gently as it flows, never still, yet never hurried. A light breeze passes over it, moving toward the land. It carries with it a coolness that was absent during the day. As it reaches the settlement, it brushes against skin, against walls, against the small fires that continue to burn. The man steps outside again after eating. He stands for a moment, looking toward the river. The distance is not great, but it feels separate, a quiet boundary between the space of daily life and the constant presence of the water that sustains it. He does not go closer. He simply watches. There is something steady in the sight of the Nile, something that does not change even as everything else moves through its daily cycle. Behind him, the sounds of the settlement continue. Low voices. Soft footsteps. The occasional crackle of fire. These sounds blend together, forming a gentle background that does not disturb the calm of the evening. As the sun slips lower, nearing the horizon, the light begins to fade more quickly. The gold deepens into amber, then into a soft red that lingers for only a short time. Shadows stretch long across the ground, merging with one another until they become a single, quiet layer. The day is ending. Work has been done. Food has been shared. Now, rest begins to take its place. The man returns inside. The air within the home is cooler now. The heat of the day has softened, leaving behind a comfortable stillness. He lowers himself onto the woven mat once more, his body moving with a quiet heaviness. The woman finishes her small remaining tasks. A tool is set aside. A container is adjusted. The fire is allowed to fade slowly, its light dimming as the need for it passes. Outside, the sky darkens. The first stars begin to appear, faint at first, then clearer as the last light of the sun disappears beyond the edge of the world. The settlement grows quieter. Voices fade. Movements slow. One by one, the small signs of activity settle into stillness. The man lies back. His eyes close gradually, not all at once, but in a slow release of awareness. The sounds around him grow distant, blending into a soft and steady silence. The day, with all its quiet labor, comes to rest. And as night fully arrives, the Nile continues to flow beside the land, unchanged, carrying with it the same calm rhythm that will guide the next day, and the next, and many more beyond. Night settles fully over the land. The last traces of sunlight have disappeared, leaving behind a sky that stretches wide and deep, filled with small, steady stars. Their light is soft, almost distant, yet constant, as if they have always been there and always will be. The Nile reflects them quietly. Its surface, darker now, moves with the same slow rhythm, carrying faint lines of light that shift and disappear with each gentle ripple. The river does not rest, even as the land grows still. In the settlement, silence deepens. The small fires that once glowed near the homes have dimmed, their embers fading into a soft, low warmth. Smoke no longer rises. The air is cooler now, calm and unmoving. Inside the mud brick homes, people sleep. Their breathing fills the quiet space in slow, even patterns. The long day has taken its energy, and now the body restores itself without effort, without thought. The man lies on his woven mat. His body is still, his breathing steady. The work of the day has settled into him, not as something heavy, but as something complete. There is no need to think about what has been done. It has already passed. Nearby, the woman rests as well. The small tasks that filled her hours are finished. The grain has been ground, the bread prepared, the tools set aside. There is nothing left to do until morning returns. Outside, a faint sound moves through the darkness. A night bird calls once, then again, its voice low and distant. Somewhere near the river, reeds shift slightly as a soft breeze passes through them. The sound is gentle, almost like a whisper. These are the sounds of night. They do not disturb. They exist quietly, blending into the stillness rather than breaking it. Time passes without notice. There are no clear markers here, no dividing lines. The night stretches on in a smooth and continuous way, just as the day did, though slower, softer. Above, the stars move in their own quiet paths. They shift so slowly that their motion is almost impossible to see. Yet, over time, they change their position, marking the passing of hours in a way that does not demand attention. The Nile continues its flow. It moves past the settlement, past the fields, past the places where work was done and will be done again. It carries with it the memory of distant lands, of waters that joined together long before reaching this point. And still, it remains calm. Still, it follows its course without interruption. As the night deepens, the air grows cooler. The warmth of the day has fully faded now, leaving behind a gentle chill that settles over the land. The mud brick walls of the homes hold this coolness, creating a space that feels still and protected. The man shifts slightly in his sleep. Not fully awake, not aware, just a small movement as the body adjusts. Then stillness returns once more. Hours pass. Slowly. Quietly. And then, almost without warning, the sky begins to change again. At first, it is barely noticeable. A slight softening of the darkness along the horizon. A faint hint of gray where before there was only deep blue. The stars begin to lose their brightness, fading gently as the light returns. Morning is approaching. The transition is gradual. There is no sudden moment, no clear line between night and day. The darkness simply gives way, step by step, to a growing light that spreads across the land. In the settlement, the first signs of waking begin. A movement inside one of the homes. A shift of fabric. A quiet breath that changes rhythm. The man opens his eyes. For a moment, he remains still, adjusting to the faint light that now enters the room. The air feels cool, fresh, untouched by the heat that will come later. He sits up slowly. There is no rush. The day has not yet fully begun, and these first moments belong to stillness. Outside, the world is quiet once more, just as it was the morning before. The same soft light. The same calm air. The same steady presence of the Nile in the distance. He steps outside. The ground beneath his feet is cool again, as if the heat of the previous day has been completely erased. The sky continues to brighten, pale and open, waiting for the sun to rise once more. Others begin to appear. A figure moves along the path. Another steps out from a nearby home. Their movements are slow, unspoken, guided by the same understanding that shaped the day before. Nothing has changed. And yet, everything begins again. The cycle continues. The river will rise and fall. The fields will be tended. The grain will be ground. The stones will be shaped. And those who live within this system, those bound to its rhythm through labor and obligation, will move through their days as they always have, step by step, breath by breath. The man walks once more toward the Nile. The path is familiar. Each step falls into place without thought. As he reaches the water's edge, the first light of the sun begins to appear. A thin line of gold spreads across the horizon, reflecting on the surface of the river. The moment is quiet, almost still, as if the world is pausing before the day fully begins. He kneels again. His hands touch the water, cool and steady. This simple act repeats, just as it did before, and will do again tomorrow. Around him, others follow the same pattern. No words are needed. The rhythm holds them all. As the sun slowly rises, the land awakens once more. The soft light grows stronger. The air begins to warm. And the long, quiet cycle of life along the Nile continues, unchanged, carrying forward the steady lives of those who labor within it. The sun rises once more over the Nile. Its light spreads slowly, touching the surface of the water first, then the edges of the land, and finally the small settlement where the day begins again. The air is still cool, carrying a soft freshness that will not last for long. The man stands by the river, his hands still damp. Around him, others finish the same simple act. Water returns to the river. Silence remains between them. There is no need for more. After a short time, they turn away. The path back from the Nile fills gradually with quiet movement. Each person walks at their own pace, yet the flow feels shared, like many small streams joining together without effort. The settlement begins to wake fully. Fires are prepared again. Clay jars are lifted. The soft sounds of morning return, familiar, repeated, steady. The man does not return to rest. There is no space in the day for that. Instead, he moves directly toward the place where his labor will continue. The work may change from time to time, but the structure of the day does not. Today, he is guided toward a different task. Near the edge of the settlement, a man of higher standing waits. His clothing is cleaner, more carefully arranged. His posture is upright, still. He does not speak loudly, yet his presence carries a quiet authority that is understood without question. Those who approach him lower their gaze slightly. Not out of fear alone, but out of habit. This is how things are done. This is how order is kept. The man joins a small group gathered nearby. No explanation is given in long words. A simple gesture is enough. The direction is clear. The task will be carried out. They begin to walk. This time, their path does not lead to the open fields. Instead, it moves toward a larger structure, one that rises above the smaller homes with a more solid and lasting presence. The building is made of mud brick, but it is wider, stronger, and more carefully shaped. Its walls stand higher. Its entrance is marked by a simple but clear sense of importance. This is a place of storage and control. Inside, the air is cooler. The thick walls hold back the heat, creating a quiet, enclosed space where goods are kept: grain, tools, materials gathered from many hands across the land. The man enters with the others. His eyes adjust slowly to the softer light within. Shapes take form: large containers, stacked carefully, each one holding something of value. Here, the work is different. It is not the open rhythm of the fields, nor the heavy coordination of moving stone. It is more contained, more precise. A container is opened. Grain is measured. Small amounts are taken, recorded not in spoken words, but in marks made by those assigned to keep track. These marks, pressed into soft surfaces or written onto fragments, hold meaning for those who understand them. The man does not write. His role is to carry, to move, to place. He lifts a portion of grain, holding it carefully as he carries it across the room. His steps are steady. Nothing must be spilled. Nothing must be lost. Others do the same. Together, they shift the contents of the space, preparing it for what will be needed next. The work is quiet, almost silent, broken only by the soft sound of movement and the occasional instruction given in a low voice. This place reflects another part of life. Not the growing of food, but its control. Not the shaping of land, but the shaping of order. And within it, those bound to labor continue to serve their role. Their time is directed. Their effort is guided. Their place is fixed within a system that reaches beyond what they can see. Still, within the work itself, there is a kind of calm. The movements are steady. The tasks are clear. The day unfolds just as it always does, one small action at a time. Outside, the sun continues to rise. Its light grows stronger, spreading across the settlement, across the fields, across the distant structures that stand quietly against the sky. Back in the homes, the woman begins her work again. The rhythm has not changed. Grain is placed on the stone. Hands move back and forth. The soft scraping sound returns, just as it did the day before. Nearby, water is poured into a clay vessel. It settles with a quiet, hollow sound. The container is placed carefully in the shade, where it will remain cool for as long as possible. The child watches again. There is a stillness in the watching, a quiet absorption of what is seen. No lessons are spoken, yet learning continues all the same. Outside, more people move toward their tasks. Some return to the fields. Others walk toward the building site. A few remain within the settlement, tending to smaller but no less necessary duties. Each life follows a path. These paths are not chosen freely. They are shaped by birth, by circumstance, by the quiet decisions of those who hold authority. And yet, within these paths, there is a kind of consistency that brings a quiet understanding. Each person knows what the day will hold. Each person moves within that knowing. As the morning deepens, the work inside the storage building continues. The man lifts, carries, places. Again and again. The pattern does not change. And in this repetition, time begins to soften, just as it does in the fields. Moments blend together. The beginning of the task fades into its continuation, and the continuation stretches forward without clear end. At times, he pauses. Only briefly. A breath. A shift of weight. Then movement again. The air inside the building remains still. It holds a faint scent of grain, dry and earthy. Dust rests lightly on the surfaces, disturbed only when something is moved. In one corner, a figure sits with a flat surface before him. His hand moves carefully, marking symbols that carry meaning, records of what enters and what leaves, what is stored and what is given. These records are part of the system. They ensure that nothing is lost, that everything is accounted for, that the flow of resources continues without interruption. The man does not look closely. This is not his task. His world is shaped by physical movement, by the steady use of his body in service of what is required. And so the morning continues. Outside, the heat begins to return. Inside, the work remains calm and measured. Across the land, in every direction, the same quiet pattern unfolds, different tasks, different spaces, yet all connected by the same steady rhythm. A rhythm shaped by the Nile. A rhythm shaped by labor. A rhythm that carries each person forward, one simple moment at a time. The morning settles into its full rhythm once more. The light is stronger now, filling every open space, reaching into the settlement, the fields, and the storage buildings alike. The air begins to warm again, though it has not yet reached the quiet weight of midday. Inside the storage building, the man continues his work. The pattern has become steady, almost without thought. He lifts, carries, and places with a quiet consistency. Each movement follows the last, forming a chain that stretches through the morning hours. Nearby, the one who keeps the records remains seated. His presence is calm, but firm. He watches. Not constantly, not with sharp attention at every moment, but enough to maintain order. His eyes move from one place to another, observing the flow of work, noting any small change that might require correction. He does not raise his voice. There is no need. A slight gesture, a brief word spoken in a low tone, these are enough to guide the workers. The system does not rely on loud command. It rests on understanding, on habit, on the quiet acceptance of roles that have long been established. The man feels this presence. Not as a direct pressure, but as something that exists around him, shaping the way he moves, the care he takes, the steadiness of his pace. This is part of life here. Work is not only about the task itself. It is also about the structure that surrounds it. Outside, along the path between the buildings, another figure moves slowly. He carries no tools. His hands are free, his steps measured. His clothing is simple, yet arranged with care, suggesting a position slightly above those who labor directly. He pauses from time to time, observing different areas of the settlement. This is another form of oversight. Not constant, not intrusive, but present. His gaze passes over the fields in the distance, where lines of workers continue their steady motions. It shifts toward the building site, where stone is being shaped and moved. Then back toward the homes, where smaller tasks unfold quietly. Nothing escapes this quiet observation. And yet, it does not feel sharp or sudden. It is part of the rhythm. Part of the balance that keeps everything moving without disruption. In the fields, the work has continued without pause. The man who labored there the day before is not alone in his efforts. Many others move alongside him, each one following the same pattern of planting, tending, and shaping the land. From a distance, their movements appear almost unified. Small figures bending and rising, stepping forward in slow, even lines. The repetition creates a sense of calm, as if the land itself is guiding their actions. At the edge of the field, one individual stands slightly apart. He watches. His role is not to work the soil, but to ensure that the work continues as it should. His presence is quiet, but it carries weight. When he steps closer, small adjustments are made. A line is straightened. A pace is corrected. A task is shifted slightly to maintain balance across the field. He does not linger in one place for long. He moves, slowly and steadily, allowing his presence to be felt without interrupting the flow. For those who labor, this presence becomes part of the background. It is always there, yet it does not dominate the moment. The work remains the focus. Back inside the storage building, the man completes another small task. He places a container in its proper place, aligning it carefully with others nearby. The order is important. Each item has its position, and that position must be maintained. He steps back. For a moment, there is stillness. Then, another task begins. Time continues to pass in this quiet way. Not marked by loud signals, but by the completion of one action and the beginning of another. The air inside grows slightly warmer. Though the walls hold back much of the heat, the rising temperature outside begins to press inward. A faint line of light shifts across the floor as the sun climbs higher. Elsewhere in the settlement, the woman continues her work. The grain has been ground again. Now she prepares another simple mixture, combining water and flour with slow, practiced movements. Her hands move with ease, guided by memory rather than thought. This work does not change from day to day. And in that sameness, there is a quiet stability. Nearby, another woman tends to a different task. She weaves. Reeds or fibers are placed carefully, one over the other, forming a pattern that grows slowly with each movement. The work requires attention, but not urgency. It unfolds at its own pace, just like everything else. The two women do not speak much. A few quiet words pass between them, then fade. Silence returns, not as an absence, but as a presence of its own. Children move nearby, their steps soft against the ground. They watch, they wander, they pause, and observe. Their world is small, yet filled with the same steady rhythm that shapes the lives of those around them. As the morning continues, the structure of life remains clear. There are those who direct, those who observe, and those who carry out the work. Each role is part of a larger system that extends across the land, connecting the smallest task to something much greater. Yet for those within it, life remains close and immediate. The feel of the tool in the hand, the texture of grain beneath the fingers, the warmth of the sun on the skin. These are the details that shape each moment. These are the things that are known most clearly. The larger system exists, but it does not need to be understood fully. It simply is. And within it, the day continues to unfold. The sun rises higher. The air grows warmer. The work continues. Always steady. Always quiet. Always part of the same unbroken rhythm that moves through the land, guided by the Nile, carried by time, and lived by those whose days pass gently beneath the wide and endless sky. The morning moves closer to its middle. The sun has risen high enough now that its warmth is felt more fully across the land. The light is steady, filling every open space, touching the fields, the buildings, and the narrow paths between homes. Inside the storage building, the work begins to slow for a brief time. Not a full stop, but a soft pause. The man sets down what he carries and straightens his back. Around him, others do the same. There is a shared understanding that this moment has come, just as it did the day before. Food will be given. From the ordered rows of stored grain, a small portion is brought forward. It is measured carefully, watched closely, and then distributed in simple amounts. There is no excess. Each portion is enough, but only just. The man steps forward when it is his turn. He receives his share without speaking, holding it carefully in his hands. The grain is dry, familiar, and necessary. It carries the energy that will allow him to continue the day's work. Nearby, water is also passed. It moves from one person to another in quiet succession. Each drink is small, controlled. The coolness offers brief relief from the growing warmth of the air. There is no gathering in large groups. No loud conversation. The moment of eating remains calm and contained, shaped by the same quiet order that guides the work itself. In other parts of the settlement, similar scenes unfold. Near the fields, workers sit along the edges of the land, where a small amount of shade can be found. They eat slowly, often in silence, their bodies resting just enough to regain strength. Some have slightly different portions. Those who work in certain areas, or who have particular roles, may receive a bit more or a bit less. These differences are small, but they exist, reflecting the quiet structure that divides labor in subtle ways. At the building site, the workers pause as well. They sit close to the ground, their bodies marked lightly by dust from the stone. Their hands rest for a moment, no longer gripping rope or tool. Food is shared here too. Simple, measured, steady. The same patterns repeat across every space. Back in the settlement, the woman prepares to eat after finishing her tasks. Her portion is similar. Grain, shaped into bread, perhaps softened with water. There is little variation, yet the routine itself brings a quiet sense of balance. She sits near the doorway, where a small current of air moves through. The child sits beside her. Together, they eat slowly. There is no need to rush. The day will continue, and this moment is simply one part of it. As they eat, the sounds of the settlement remain soft. A distant voice. The quiet movement of feet. The faint shifting of objects being placed and adjusted. Everything continues, even within the pause. Living spaces remain simple. The homes, built of mud brick, are close to one another, forming small clusters that create a sense of shared space. Inside, there are few possessions, only what is needed for daily life. A mat for rest. A container for water. A place to store grain. Nothing more. These spaces do not change often. They remain steady, shaped by necessity rather than comfort. Yet within their simplicity, there is a kind of quiet order that reflects the lives lived inside them. Not all dwellings are the same. Some are slightly larger, with stronger walls or more carefully arranged spaces. These differences are not dramatic, but they are present, marking the boundaries between those with more control and those with less. The man's home remains modest. It holds what is required, and no more. This is the pattern for many like him. Their lives are shaped by function, by the need to work, to rest, and to continue again. As the moment of eating comes to an end, movement slowly returns. The man rises. The grain he has eaten settles within him, bringing a quiet strength that will carry him through the remaining hours of the day. Around him, others stand as well. The pause fades. Work resumes. Inside the storage building, the pattern begins again. Lifting. Carrying. Placing. The man returns to his position without hesitation. His hands find their task as if they had never left it. The one who records continues as well. His marks grow slowly, each one adding to a system that extends beyond the room, beyond the settlement, connecting to larger networks of supply and control. Outside, the sun continues its steady climb toward its highest point. The air grows warmer. The light becomes stronger. And with it, the pace of movement adjusts once more, becoming slightly more measured, slightly more careful. In the fields, workers return to their rows. The soil, already prepared, receives their attention again. Small adjustments are made. Water is guided where needed. Every action is part of a larger cycle that cannot be rushed. At the building site, the stones wait. The workers rise and gather once more, preparing to continue the slow movement of weight and balance. Their bodies, briefly rested, return to the shared effort. Across the land, the pattern is the same. Different tasks. Different spaces. But one rhythm. For those who live within this system of labor, the differences between roles are quiet but present. Some work under the open sky. Some within enclosed spaces. Some move heavy materials. Others tend to finer tasks. Each role carries its own demands, its own pace, its own small variations. Yet all are connected. All are guided. All are part of a structure that holds them in place, day after day. The man does not question this. Not because he understands everything, but because this is the only pattern he has known for a long time. His world is built from repetition. From the steady return of each task. From the quiet continuation of one day into the next. As the morning begins to give way to midday once again, the sun reaches higher, and the land prepares to enter the slow, heavy warmth that will settle over everything. And still, the work continues. Calm. Measured. Unbroken. Carried forward by many hands, each one moving within the same quiet rhythm that defines life along the Nile. The sun reaches its highest point again. It hangs above the land with a steady, unchanging light, filling every space with warmth that feels both constant and unavoidable. Shadows grow small once more, gathered tightly beneath people, tools, and structures. Midday has fully arrived. Across the fields, movement continues, but it has changed slightly. The man feels it in his body. Each motion requires more attention now. The soil is still soft from earlier preparation, but the heat above makes every action feel heavier, as if the air itself has grown denser. Still, he works. Step by step. Lift and place. Press and release. The rhythm does not stop, but it becomes more careful, more deliberate. Around him, others move in the same way. No one speaks more than necessary. Words are rare at this hour. They are saved, as if even sound requires effort in the heat. A faint wind passes through the field, but it is brief and weak. It does little to change the warmth. It only reminds those working that movement beyond still air is possible, even if temporary. At the edge of the field, the observer remains present. He walks slowly, pausing at intervals. His presence is steady, not intrusive, but constant enough to be felt. When he stops, a small adjustment is made somewhere in the field. A pace is corrected. A line is straightened. There is no need for raised voice. The system functions through awareness, through shared understanding of order. The man does not look toward him often. But he knows he is there. And so, the work continues within that quiet awareness. In the storage building, the air has grown warmer as well. Though the thick walls protect against the worst of the heat, it still finds its way inside in soft waves. The space feels still, almost unmoving. The man continues his tasks. His arms feel heavier now. The simple act of lifting grain or containers requires more effort than it did earlier. Yet the rhythm remains unchanged. The repetition carries him forward. Lift. Carry. Place. Each action follows the last, forming a steady chain that fills the hours. The recorder continues his marks. His hand moves more slowly than before, but without pause. The record grows, line by line, quietly documenting the flow of resources through the space. Outside, the settlement rests under the full weight of midday. In some areas, activity slows briefly. Not fully stopping, but easing into smaller tasks. A few workers sit in whatever shade they can find, resting their bodies for a short time before returning to labor. Water is shared again, carefully measured, always limited but enough to sustain. The woman inside her home has finished her morning tasks. Now she sits quietly for a moment, her hands still. The child lies nearby, partly resting, partly watching the shifting light through the doorway. The air inside is warmer now, but still more bearable than outside. The thick walls hold some of the heat, but also provide a sense of enclosure, a stillness that softens the intensity of the day. She adjusts a small container, then remains still again. There is no urgency in this moment. Only the quiet presence of midday. Farther out, at the building site, the movement of stone continues. It is here that the strain is most visible. Large blocks rest on ramps, slowly being shifted into place by coordinated effort. The work requires full attention. Each movement must be precise, each pull balanced with others. The workers lean into ropes. Their bodies form part of a larger system of weight and resistance. When the stone moves even slightly, a quiet sense of progress passes through the group. It is small, almost unnoticeable, but enough to mark continuation. Then they rest briefly. Breathing slow. Hands steadying. Before the next movement begins. This pattern repeats. Effort. Pause. Effort again. In these hours, endurance becomes the quiet center of life. Not dramatic endurance, not something spoken of in large terms, but simple, daily endurance. The kind that exists in repetition, in heat, in the steady requirement to continue without stopping. The man in the storage building feels this in his own way. His body grows tired, but not overwhelmed. There is a familiarity to it. A recognition that this feeling is part of the day, just as morning coolness and evening calm are part of their own times. He adjusts his grip. Shifts his stance. Continues. Time moves slowly in these hours. Not in a way that feels broken, but stretched, as if each moment is slightly longer than those before it. The sun remains high. The land remains warm. And all across it, life continues in its quiet structure. Work does not vanish. It only changes its weight. Becoming slower, heavier, more measured. Yet still moving forward. Always forward. As midday holds its place over the Nile Valley, the rhythm of labor remains unbroken, steady, patient, and deeply woven into the lives of those who move within it, one quiet moment at a time. The sun begins its slow descent, almost imperceptible at first. It is still strong, still present, but something in its position has shifted. The light no longer feels fixed in the highest point of the sky. Instead, it begins to stretch slightly, changing its angle across the land. Midday has passed its peak. And with it, the world starts to soften again. In the fields, the man notices this change in a quiet way. Not through thought, but through feeling. The weight of the air is still there, but it no longer presses as sharply as before. Movements, while still slow and careful, begin to feel slightly less heavy. He continues working. The rows he has been tending are farther along now. Each section completed blends into the next, forming a continuous pattern across the soil. Around him, others remain focused. But there is a subtle easing in their bodies. Shoulders loosen slightly. Steps become a fraction more fluid. The hardest part of the day is now behind them, even if the work itself is not yet finished. At the edge of the field, the observer walks a little less frequently. He still moves, still watches, but the need for correction becomes less. The rhythm of the field is steady now, held in balance without adjustment. The land itself seems to settle into this phase of the day. The sun's light grows warmer in tone, less sharp than before. It spreads across the fields in long, even layers, touching everything with a steady glow. In the storage building, the atmosphere shifts in a similar way. The man continues his work, but his movements feel slightly more stable now, as if his body has adapted to the heat of the day. The repetition continues. Lift. Carry. Place. But something in the pace has changed. It is no longer the tightening effort of midday. It is a steadier continuation, as if the day itself is beginning to exhale. The recorder adds another line. His hand pauses for a fraction longer between movements, then resumes. Outside, the settlement begins to feel more open again. The heat is still present, but it no longer feels as overwhelming as before. The sharpness of midday has softened into something more bearable, something that can be lived within rather than endured. In the homes, the woman steps outside briefly. The air feels different against her skin. Still warm, but not pressing in the same way. She looks toward the river in the distance. The light on the water has changed slightly, becoming less bright, more reflective. The child follows her gaze. Neither of them speak. There is no need. This is a familiar part of the day. A quiet turning. Somewhere near the fields, a worker pauses for a longer moment than before. He sits on the edge of a low ridge, allowing his body to rest. Others nearby do the same, forming small, scattered groups across the land. Water is passed again. This time, the act feels less urgent. More like a shared pause than a necessity of survival. Even the sounds of the land begin to change. The sharpest movements have softened. Tools still strike soil, but with less force. Footsteps still move across paths, but with less strain. The entire landscape feels slightly slower, slightly more open. The man in the field straightens his back for a moment. Not fully resting, but allowing himself a brief release from constant motion. His eyes move across the land. He sees others doing the same. Small pauses. Short rests. Moments of stillness woven into the continuing work. Then he resumes. Because the day is not yet complete. But something in him understands that completion is approaching in distance, even if it is still hours away. Above, the sun continues its descent. It does not rush. It never does. It moves in the same steady way it always has, marking time not through sudden change, but through gradual transformation. The light grows slightly softer with each passing moment. Shadows begin to lengthen again, slowly stretching outward across the ground. In the storage building, the air is more comfortable than before. Not cool, but less heavy. The man completes another task and sets down his load. His hands rest briefly at his sides. A pause. Then movement again. But now the rhythm feels more sustainable. The day is no longer climbing upward. It is turning gently toward its close. And with that turn, something in the people across the land begins to shift. Not a change in duty, but a quiet easing of endurance. A recognition that the hardest hours have passed. And what remains is a steady continuation toward evening. The Nile reflects this shift. Its surface catches the changing light, showing softer tones now less harsh, more golden, more fluid. It moves as it always does. Unchanged. Unhurried. And yet everything around it feels slightly different as the afternoon leans toward evening. In the fields, in the buildings, in the homes, in the quiet paths between them the rhythm continues. But it begins to loosen. Just a little. Like a long breath slowly being released. And the day moves forward, gently, toward its final hours. The light of late afternoon spreads across the land with a softer tone now. It is no longer the sharp brightness of midday, nor the steady weight of early afternoon. Instead, it feels gentler, as if the sun itself is beginning to slow its pace across the sky. Shadows grow longer again. They stretch across the fields in thin, quiet lines, touching the feet of workers, the edges of tools, and the rows of soil that have been shaped throughout the day. The man continues his work, but something has changed in its feeling. The rhythm remains, yet it is no longer pressing in the same way. Each movement feels slightly lighter, as if the land itself is no longer demanding the same intensity as before. Around him, others sense it too. There is no announcement. No signal. Only the shared awareness that the day is shifting again. The field has been worked for many hours now. Rows are longer. Sections are more complete. The effort that began in the early morning has carried through heat, stillness, and endurance, and now approaches a natural turning point. At the edge of the field, the observer remains. His presence is quieter now. He walks less frequently, standing for longer moments as he watches the work settle into its final stages. No corrections are needed. The rhythm holds on its own. In the storage building, the man completes another cycle of movement. The pattern continues, but the urgency of earlier hours has faded. His body moves with familiarity, almost ease, even within the repetition. Lift. Carry. Place. The tasks remain the same. But the sense of pressure has softened. The recorder marks a final set of entries for this part of the day. His hand slows slightly between lines, as if even documentation itself is following the easing rhythm of the afternoon. Outside, the settlement begins to shift in visible ways. People who worked farther from home begin to return. First in small groups. Then more steadily. From the fields, figures appear along the paths. From the building site, workers descend carefully from ramps and platforms. From storage spaces, those who carried goods step out into the open air. It is not a sudden return. It is gradual, layered. A slow gathering back toward the center of daily life. The man finishes his current task. He pauses, holding still for a moment longer than before. The tool in his hand is set down with care. Not urgency. Not exhaustion alone. But completion of a segment of the day. Around him, others do the same. One by one, the active motion of labor begins to quiet. Not ending abruptly, but loosening. Like threads gently released from tension. The walk back toward the settlement begins. The ground beneath their feet feels different now. Softer, perhaps not physically, but in perception. The weight of the day is present, but no longer growing. The man walks slowly along the familiar path. His body carries the memory of effort, but it is balanced now by the knowledge that rest is approaching. The air has cooled slightly. Not enough to call it evening, but enough to be noticed. A subtle relief moves through the land. At the settlement, the sounds begin to change again. Work-related movement fades. The preparation of evening tasks begins. Fires are started in small groups. Water is carried in larger amounts now, not for immediate labor, but for use at home. The woman steps outside again as the man approaches. Their eyes meet briefly. No words are needed. The return is understood. Inside, the space feels different than it did in the morning. Not warmer, not cooler, but quieter in a deeper sense. The day's intensity has softened the atmosphere. The child sits near the doorway, watching the movement outside. Other figures pass along the path, returning from their own work. Some are silent. Some exchange low, simple words. But all carry the same quiet transition in their posture. The shift from labor to rest has begun. Along the river, the Nile continues its steady motion. The afternoon light reflects off its surface in long, fading streaks. It does not change its pace. It does not rush toward evening. It simply continues, as it always has. In the fields behind, the rows remain. The work completed is visible in the land itself. In the building sites, structures stand slightly more complete than they were in the morning. In the storage areas, goods are arranged in their quiet order. Everything holds the imprint of the day's labor. And yet, nothing is hurried. Nothing is unfinished in a sudden way. It all settles into place gradually. As the sun lowers further, the sky begins its slow transformation. The brightness softens. The heat lessens. The land exhales. And the people who have moved through its long hours begin to return fully to the spaces where evening will take over. The rhythm of labor fades gently into the rhythm of rest. Not as an ending, but as a continuation in a different form. The day is not gone yet. But it is no longer demanding. It is beginning to release its hold. And across the quiet settlement beside the Nile, life moves with it slowly, steadily, into the calm of evening. The sun lowers further now, moving closer to the edge of the world. Its light becomes softer, thinner, stretched across the land in long golden bands that slowly fade into amber. The heat of the day loosens its grip, leaving behind a gentle warmth that feels less demanding, more forgiving. Evening begins to settle over the Nile Valley. The man walks through the settlement with slow, steady steps. His body feels the day in a quiet, natural way. Not sharp exhaustion, but a deep familiarity of effort completed. His hands are slightly roughened from work. His shoulders carry a light heaviness that comes only after long hours of motion. Around him, others return in the same way. They pass along the narrow paths between homes, their movements unhurried now. There is no urgency left in the day. Only return. Only arrival. Inside the settlement, small fires glow softly. They are not large. Not bright. Just enough to bring warmth and light as the sky begins to dim. Thin streams of smoke rise upward, then dissolve into the cooling air. The woman is inside again. She prepares the evening space with quiet movements. A mat is adjusted. A container of water is placed within reach. The simple order of the home is restored after the day's absence. The man enters. For a moment, neither speaks. There is a shared stillness in the transition from labor to rest, as if words are not yet needed after the long rhythm of the day. He sits slowly. The ground beneath him is familiar, steady. His breathing changes as his body settles. The constant motion of the day begins to release its hold, one layer at a time. Outside, the settlement continues its gentle shift into evening. Small groups gather in open spaces. People sit near the low glow of fires, sharing simple food prepared earlier or now warmed again. Movements are slower, voices lower, as if the entire world has softened its edges. The child sits close to the woman. Quiet now. Watching the firelight flicker gently across the ground. There is no play at this moment. Only stillness. Only presence. Along the paths, the final movements of returning workers fade. One by one, the day's labor fully withdraws from the fields, the building sites, and the storage spaces. The land outside the settlement becomes still again. Fields lie quiet under the fading light. Tools rest where they were left. Water in the canals moves slowly, reflecting the sky as it shifts toward dusk. The man eats in silence. Small portions, simple food. The act is unhurried, almost reflective. Each bite is part of a quiet return to balance after the intensity of the day. Nearby, others do the same. There is no gathering of large groups. No structured celebration. Only the steady presence of shared routine. Evening in this place is not marked by ceremony. It is marked by relief. By stillness. By the gradual easing of all effort. The sky outside deepens in color. The gold of sunset softens into deeper orange, then into a calm red that lingers briefly along the horizon before fading. Shadows grow longer again, but this time they do not press. They settle. The Nile reflects the change. Its surface carries the last light of the day in slow-moving patterns, breaking and reforming as the water flows. It remains constant. It remains unchanged. Yet everything around it shifts gently toward rest. Inside the home, the fire dims slightly. Not extinguished, but lowered. Its glow becomes softer, more intimate, filling the space with a warm, quiet presence. The man leans back slightly. His body rests more fully now. The weight of the day is still there, but it no longer moves with urgency. It has become something still, something held rather than carried. Outside, voices fade. Steps become rare. The settlement moves into near silence. Not empty silence, but full silence. A silence shaped by living, by effort, by the completion of another long cycle. The woman sits nearby. Her hands rest in her lap. There is nothing more required for this moment. Only stillness. Only the slow settling of the day into night. The child leans gently against her. Eyes heavy now. Breathing soft and slow. Above them, the first stars begin to appear once again. Small points of light returning to the sky they had left hours before. One by one, they emerge. Quiet. Steady. Familiar. The man looks toward them for a brief moment. Then lowers his gaze again. The day is nearly complete. The rhythm that began at dawn has passed through labor, heat, return, and rest. And now it reaches this final stage. Not an ending that feels sudden, but a gentle fading. As the settlement beside the Nile grows still, the night slowly takes its place over the land once more. And everything settles into quiet again. Night settles more deeply now. The last trace of sunset has faded completely, leaving the sky wide and dark, filled with steady stars that seem to hang motionless above the land. Their light is soft, distant, and patient, as if time itself has slowed beneath them. The settlement is quiet. Not empty. Just still. Inside the homes, people rest. The man lies on his mat, his body fully released from the weight of the day. His breathing is slow and even. The rhythm of labor has left him for now, replaced by a deeper stillness that belongs only to night. Nearby, the woman rests as well. The fire has dimmed to a faint glow. It no longer flickers with energy, but holds a gentle warmth that slowly fades into the air around it. The child sleeps. Small, steady breathing. A quiet presence beside the adults. Outside, the Nile continues its movement. It does not change for night or day. It flows as it always has, carrying the memory of distant rains and far-off lands, moving through darkness with the same calm certainty as it does through daylight. The river reflects the stars. Soft points of light ripple across its surface, breaking and reforming with each gentle motion of water. Nothing interrupts its rhythm. Nothing asks it to stop. Along the edges of the settlement, faint sounds remain. A shifting of reeds. A distant movement of wind. The occasional call of a night bird, brief and quiet, dissolving quickly into silence. Time passes slowly here. Without sharp divisions. Without urgency. The man stirs slightly in his sleep. A small movement of the hand. Then stillness returns. The body continues its quiet work of rest, repairing what was used during the day, preparing without awareness for what will come again. Inside the homes, everything feels close and contained. The mud brick walls hold the coolness of night, creating a space that is steady and protected. The outside world feels distant, even though it is only a few steps away. The rhythm of life does not stop. It only changes form. The fields remain under the sky, resting after their long hours of labor. The soil holds the marks of work done, lines shaped by tools, water guided through channels, seeds placed carefully into place. The building sites stand quiet. Stone rests where it was set. Structures wait in their unfinished and finished forms alike, holding the shape of human effort within their stillness. Storage spaces remain sealed and orderly. Everything placed where it belongs. Everything waiting for the next need. And within all of this, the Nile continues its steady flow. It is the one constant through every phase of the day. Morning. Midday. Evening. Night. It does not change its nature. It simply continues. Above, the stars shift slowly across the sky. Their movement is almost impossible to notice in any single moment, yet over time, they trace quiet paths through the darkness, marking the passing of hours in a language older than memory. The night grows deeper. The settlement grows quieter still. Even the faintest movements fade. The man sleeps more fully now. His body completely still. His mind no longer holding the day, but letting it dissolve into rest. There is no sense of ending here. Only continuation in another form. The same rhythm that carried the day now carries the night. Soft. Unbroken. Present. And somewhere beyond sleep, beyond awareness, there is the quiet return of something familiar. Not a thought. Not a plan. But the gentle unfolding of another beginning that has not yet arrived. The Nile moves. The stars remain. The land rests. And the cycle continues, patient and endless beneath the wide and silent sky. The night begins to shift, almost imperceptibly. It is still dark, still deep, still quiet. But somewhere along the far edge of the horizon, the darkness is no longer complete. A faint softness begins to gather there, so subtle it is almost indistinguishable from the night itself. The Nile moves through it unchanged. Its surface remains calm, reflecting only fragments of starlight now, broken into thin, scattered lines that drift and fade with each gentle ripple. In the settlement, everything is still. The man sleeps. His body rests deeply, fully, as if held by the quiet weight of the night. The day before feels distant now, no longer active in his mind, existing only as a trace within his body. The woman remains still as well. The fire has long since faded into nothing but a darkened space where warmth once was. The air inside the home is cool, steady, and unmoving. The child sleeps without shifting. Breathing soft. Unbroken. Outside, the land holds its silence. Fields lie in complete rest. The soil does not move. The canals are still except for the slow passage of water guided far away. Even the reeds near the river stand without sound, as if the entire landscape is waiting. Time continues. But it does so without announcement. Without signal. Only change, arriving gently in layers too subtle to name. Far in the distance, the first hint of pre-dawn begins to grow. Not light yet. Not color. Only a slight thinning of darkness where night begins to lose its deepest tone. The stars remain, but they seem a little less sharp than before. A little more distant. The air itself feels different, though nothing has visibly changed. It is the quiet turning of the world. Inside the home, the man stirs slightly. A small shift of the shoulder. A slow adjustment of breath. There is no waking yet. Only the body responding to the subtle changes around it, as if it recognizes something before the mind does. Outside, the Nile reflects this transition. The surface darkens and lightens in places, not through movement alone, but through the changing sky above it. It continues forward. Always forward. As it has done through every hour of the night. The settlement remains asleep. Yet something within it begins to loosen. The deep stillness of night is slowly becoming the softer stillness of early morning. The difference is small. But it is always there. A quiet signal that another cycle is approaching. The fields wait. The buildings wait. The tools left at rest wait. Everything holds its place without movement, without tension. And then, very slowly, the first real sign of dawn begins. A faint line of pale gray appears along the horizon. Barely visible. Soft enough to blend with the last moments of night. The stars closest to that edge begin to fade, not all at once, but gradually, as if stepping backward into darkness. The man opens his eyes. Not fully. Not immediately. Only a gradual return to awareness, as if the boundary between sleep and waking is being crossed gently. He remains still for a moment. Listening. Not to sound, but to the quiet change in the air. The beginning of morning is always like this. Not sudden. Not loud. But arriving slowly enough that it feels like it has always been there. Inside the settlement, small movements begin. Not many. Not yet. Just the earliest signs. A shift of fabric. A change in breathing. A body adjusting before waking fully. The woman turns slightly. The child remains asleep. The man sits up slowly. The woven mat beneath him is familiar, unchanged, holding the shape of rest that has just ended. He does not stand yet. There is no rush. Outside, the horizon brightens a little more. The gray deepens into a soft, pale tone. The night is not gone. But it is no longer complete. The Nile reflects this change again. Dark water carrying the first suggestion of returning light. Everything remains quiet. But everything is beginning again. The cycle, unchanged for as long as memory can reach, is preparing to move forward. Not with force. Not with noise. But with the same slow certainty it always has. The man breathes deeply once. Then slowly shifts his feet toward the ground. Another day is near. And the land, still resting in its final moments of night, begins to listen for it. The pale light at the edge of the sky grows brighter. It is still soft, still quiet, but it spreads wider now, touching more of the horizon with a gentle gray-blue glow. The deep darkness of night continues to retreat, not in a sudden way, but in a slow, patient release. The Nile reflects this change first. Its surface, once nearly black, begins to show faint tones again. Not full color yet. Only suggestion. A thin memory of the sky returning to itself. Inside the settlement, the man stands. His movements are slow, natural, unforced. The night has ended its deepest hold, and the body responds before thought does. He steps lightly on the ground, feeling the coolness that still lingers from the night. Around him, the home remains still. The woman is quiet. The child sleeps. Everything feels close, contained, as if the world outside has not yet fully reached in. But it is coming. Outside, the horizon continues to brighten. The stars fade one by one, not disappearing all at once, but thinning, becoming less certain until they are no longer visible. The sky shifts from dark to gray, then toward a faint, soft blue. The air begins to change as well. It is still cool, but not as deep as before. It carries the first suggestion of warmth, though the sun itself has not yet appeared. Across the settlement, small signs of waking begin again. A door shifts slightly. A container is moved. A quiet step across packed earth. The beginning of movement returns, just as it has every morning before. The man steps outside. The ground beneath him feels familiar, unchanged. He pauses for a moment. The sky above is opening slowly, revealing more of itself with each passing breath of time. The Nile is still, but no longer dark. It holds the sky in softened reflection, waiting for the sun that will soon rise. Nearby, others begin to emerge from their homes. Their movements are slow at first, as if the weight of sleep is still being released from their bodies. No one speaks loudly. The morning does not ask for noise. Only presence. Only return. The man begins to walk. The path toward the river is the same as always. Worn by countless footsteps, shaped by repetition, unchanged in its direction. He follows it without hesitation. Around him, others do the same. Their paths slowly merge, not by planning, but by habit. The settlement gently shifts from rest into motion. As they reach the river's edge, the first visible light of the sun begins to appear. A thin line of gold forms along the horizon, soft at first, almost fragile. The water responds immediately. It catches the light and holds it gently, spreading it across its surface in faint, moving patterns. The man kneels. The water is cool against his hands. It is the same act as every morning before. Simple. Steady. Unchanged. Around him, others do the same. No one needs instruction. The rhythm is already known. The day is beginning again. And with it, everything returns to its familiar structure. The fields will open once more. The work will resume. The quiet labor of many lives will continue beneath the rising sun. But for this moment, everything remains soft. Not yet fully awake. Not yet fully bright. Just the gentle return of light over a land that has known this cycle many times before, and will know it again. The sun rises slowly now. And the Nile carries that light forward, as it always does, into another day. The sun rises a little higher now. Its light is no longer thin or uncertain. It begins to spread with more confidence across the land, warming the surface of the Nile, the edges of the settlement, and the wide stretches of fields that wait just beyond. Morning is now fully present. The man stands from the river. Water drips slowly from his hands, returning to the river as quietly as it was taken. He does not rush. No one does. The beginning of the day is never hurried here. It unfolds at its own steady pace. Around him, others rise as well. Their movements are familiar, repeated, almost automatic in their gentleness. There is no need for instruction. The pattern is already understood. They begin to walk back toward the settlement. The path feels slightly warmer now under the growing light. Dust shifts softly underfoot, rising just for a moment before settling again. The Nile remains behind them, flowing steadily as always. It does not follow them. It does not need to. It simply continues, as it has through every night and every morning before. Inside the settlement, activity begins to form again. Fires are prepared in small spaces. Water is collected. Simple food is readied for the day ahead. The woman moves through these tasks with quiet familiarity. Her hands repeat the same motions they performed the day before. There is comfort in the repetition, not excitement, but stability. The child watches briefly, then turns attention to the growing light outside. The man enters again. The home feels different now that morning has fully arrived. Not warmer in temperature, but more active in presence, as if the world outside has stepped closer. He sits briefly. There is a short moment of stillness before the day's labor begins again. Outside, the fields are already visible under the morning sun. The soil appears darker now under the light, richer, more defined. Small groups begin to form along the paths leading out of the settlement. The workers gather without formal instruction. They simply move toward where they know they are expected to be. The man joins them. Together, they begin the walk toward the fields once more. The rhythm of the day resumes. Step by step. Forward. Always forward. The air grows warmer as the sun climbs. The light becomes stronger, more direct, filling the land with the steady brightness of morning work. In the fields, tools are picked up again. The soil is ready, as it always is. Rows continue to be shaped, extended, and maintained. The cycle resumes without interruption. Not because it must be forced, but because it has already been set in motion by countless days before this one. At the edge of the field, the observer stands again. His presence is familiar now. Not intrusive. Not distant. Simply part of the landscape of labor. He watches as work resumes its steady pace. No correction is needed yet. The rhythm holds. The man begins his work again. The tool meets the soil. Lift. Press. Release. The motion returns as naturally as breathing. Around him, others do the same. The day unfolds in its familiar structure once more. And though each moment feels new in its own small way, the larger pattern remains unchanged. The same land. The same river. The same movement of people through labor, rest, and return. Above them, the sun continues its climb. And below it, life resumes its quiet rhythm, steady and unbroken, as it always has been along the Nile. The sun continues its steady climb. It does not change in sudden ways. It simply rises, step by step, filling more of the sky, spreading its light further across the land. Morning is now fully alive again. The fields stretch outward under this brightness, their rows becoming clearer as the light strengthens. The soil shows every mark of work from earlier hours and from days before, layered together in quiet repetition. The man continues his labor. His movements are steady, familiar, almost effortless in their rhythm. The tool meets the earth again and again, shaping it in small, consistent motions. Around him, others work in silence. Not silence of absence, but silence of focus. The kind of silence that belongs to repetition. To familiarity. To lives lived within patterns that do not change quickly. At the edge of the field, the observer remains. He moves less now, standing in longer pauses as he watches the flow of work across the land. There is no disruption. Only continuity. The rhythm of labor holds steady. In the distance, the Nile continues to reflect the growing light of the day. It does not rush. It does not resist. It simply carries forward, as it always has, through seasons and generations. Inside the settlement, the woman continues her tasks. They are smaller now, spaced out through the morning. Adjusting, preparing, maintaining. The child moves nearby, sometimes watching, sometimes resting, sometimes simply existing within the quiet structure of the home. Everything remains simple. Everything remains familiar. As the morning deepens, the sense of time begins to soften again. Not in a way that feels unclear, but in a way that blends moments together. One task flows into the next. One movement follows another. There is no sharp separation between them. Only continuation. The man pauses briefly. Not because the work is finished, but because the body asks for a small moment of stillness. He straightens. Looks across the field. Others are doing the same. This shared pause is brief, almost unspoken. Then movement resumes. The rhythm never fully breaks. It only breathes. Above, the sky is wide and open. The sun is higher now, but not yet at its peak. The day is still unfolding forward, carrying everyone within it. And beneath it, life continues in its steady form. Work. Rest. Return. Again and again. In the distance, the river glimmers softly. A reminder that everything here is connected to something larger than any single moment. The Nile does not change its path. It does not hurry. It simply moves. And in its movement, the land finds its structure. The people find their rhythm. The man continues working. The field continues to take shape. The day continues to unfold. Not as something dramatic. Not as something sudden. But as something gentle, repeated, and deeply familiar. A pattern that stretches beyond memory. A cycle that holds everything together without needing to speak its purpose. As the sun moves higher, the world settles further into its daytime rhythm once more. And the story continues, quietly, steadily, within the long and unbroken flow of life along the Nile. The sun begins its slow descent again. At first, the change is almost unnoticeable. The light still feels strong, still holds the land in its steady brightness. But little by little, something softens in the sky. The highest point of the day has passed. And now the world begins its gradual return toward evening. In the fields, the man continues his work, though the feeling of the day has changed once more. The heat is still present, but it no longer grows. It has reached its limit and now begins to ease in the smallest ways. The air feels slightly lighter than before. His movements remain steady. Lift. Press. Release. But there is a quiet awareness now that the day is moving forward toward its later hours. Around him, others feel the same shift. No one speaks of it. There is no need. It is something felt rather than said. At the edge of the field, the observer remains still for longer periods now. He watches, but with less adjustment than before. The rhythm of the work has settled into place for the day. Everything is stable. Everything continues. In the storage building, the man carries out another cycle of tasks. The pattern remains unchanged, but the sense of time feels slightly different now. The urgency of earlier hours has fully faded. Now there is only continuation. Quiet repetition. Steady movement toward completion. The recorder adds more marks, though his hand moves more slowly than it did in the morning. Outside, the settlement begins to feel the change in light. Shadows grow again, stretching farther across the ground. The brightness of midday is gone, replaced by a softer tone that signals the approach of evening. The woman finishes another small task inside the home. Her movements slow slightly, not from fatigue alone, but from the natural easing that comes with the day's decline. The child rests nearby, more still now than before. The energy of morning and midday has softened into quiet calm. Across the land, workers continue, but their pace subtly shifts. Not stopping. Not rushing. Just easing into the later rhythm of the day. The man in the fields notices the lengthening shadows beneath his feet. They stretch toward him, then away, as the sun lowers further. This simple change is enough to mark the passage of time more clearly than anything else. He pauses for a moment. Looks across the field. The work completed today is visible in quiet ways. The soil shaped. The rows extended. The steady progress of effort made visible in the land itself. Then he continues. Because the day is not yet fully complete. Above, the sun moves lower, slowly, steadily. Its light grows warmer in color. Gold begins to deepen into softer tones, hinting at the approach of evening. The Nile reflects this transformation again. It carries the changing sky across its surface in long, shifting lines of light and shadow. Always moving. Always holding the day within itself. In the settlement, people begin to turn their attention gradually toward return. Not yet fully finished with work, but preparing for it. Gathering small things. Concluding tasks. Slowly closing the structure of the day. There is no rush toward ending. Only awareness that ending is approaching. The man feels this in his body. The weight of the day is present, but it is no longer increasing. It is settling. Becoming something complete rather than something ongoing. And in this completion, there is a quiet kind of ease. The rhythm that began at dawn now carries toward its final stages. Not breaking. Not stopping. But gently transforming. From action into return. From effort into rest. From movement into stillness. As the light continues to soften across the land, everything begins to lean toward evening once more. And the cycle, unchanged and familiar, prepares to settle into its closing hours again beneath the wide, calm sky. The sun lowers closer to the horizon now. Its light stretches long across the land, no longer bright and overhead, but warm and angled, touching everything with a softer presence. The harshness of midday is gone completely. Evening is arriving. In the fields, the man slows his movements. Not because the work suddenly ends, but because it naturally reaches its final stages. The last tasks of the day are small, measured, familiar. There is no urgency left in them. Around him, others begin to finish as well. One by one, the rhythm of labor begins to loosen. Tools are lifted less often. Movements become fewer. Bodies begin to shift from action toward return. At the edge of the field, the observer stands quietly. He watches the final patterns of the day settle into place. No corrections are needed now. The land has been worked. The day has reached its natural completion. In the storage building, the final tasks are completed in the same quiet manner. The man sets down what he is carrying. His hands rest for a moment at his sides. The recorder finishes his final marks of the day, then stills his hand. There is a brief pause. Not dramatic. Just complete. Outside, the settlement begins to gather its returning workers more fully. Paths that were active with morning departure now fill again with slow, steady return. Figures move toward home in small groups. The pace is unhurried. Almost gentle. The woman prepares the home once more for evening. Simple actions. Restoring order. Setting space for rest rather than work. The child moves more quietly now, as if the body itself understands the transition of the day. The man walks back from the fields. His steps are steady, but softened by the weight of completion. The land behind him holds the traces of the day's labor-shaped soil, extended rows, quiet evidence of continuous effort. But it no longer demands attention. It rests. The Nile flows beside everything as it always has. Now it reflects the evening sky more fully. Gold fades into deeper orange. Then into red. Then into the first quiet tones of approaching night. The water carries all of it without interruption. As the man reaches the settlement, the atmosphere has already changed. Fires begin to glow in small places again. Voices are lower. Movements slower. The entire space shifts into the calm rhythm of evening life. Inside the home, he sits once more. The transition from work to rest is complete. Not sudden. Not final in a harsh way. But natural. Like breath returning after long effort. Food is shared in simple form. Water is taken. The day's labor settles into the body as quiet fatigue, not heavy, but familiar. Outside, the sky continues to darken. The last light of the sun lingers along the horizon for a few moments, then slowly fades. Stars begin to appear again. One by one. Soft. Steady. Unchanging. The same sky that watched the beginning of the day now watches its end. The same river continues its flow. The same land rests under it. And the same rhythm that shaped the morning now completes itself in silence. The man lies down. His body still. His breathing slow. The woman rests nearby. The child quiet. The settlement becomes still once more. Not empty. Just at rest. And as night begins to settle fully over the Nile, the cycle closes gently, without interruption, without end. Because nothing here truly ends. It only returns. Morning will come again. The river will still flow. And the quiet rhythm of life, labor, rest, and return will begin once more beneath the same endless sky. Night settles fully over the land again. The sky is now deep and wide, filled with steady stars that feel unchanged from all the nights before. Their light is quiet, almost distant, as if they are watching without ever needing to move closer. Everything below them is still. The settlement rests in silence. Not empty silence, but full silence, the kind that holds the memory of a long day now completed. Inside the home, the man sleeps. His body has fully released the weight of labor. The steady rhythm of work has dissolved into rest. There is no thought of tomorrow, no planning, no urgency. Only quiet sleep. The woman rests nearby. Her breathing is slow, even, familiar. The child sleeps without movement, held gently in the same calm that fills the room. Outside, the Nile continues its movement. It does not pause. It does not remember the day. It simply flows forward, carrying the land's history in silence, passing through darkness just as it passed through light. Its surface reflects the stars again. Small points of light ripple across the water, breaking and reforming with each gentle shift in current. The fields are still. The soil rests after hours of shaping. The paths are empty now. The tools lie where they were left. Everything that moved during the day has returned to stillness. Even the air feels different. Cooler. Softer. Calmer. Time itself seems to slow here at night, as if the world is taking a long, quiet breath before beginning again. Far in the distance, a faint sound moves through the reeds by the river. Then fades. The land returns fully to silence. The man stirs once in sleep, then becomes still again. No dreams are visible. Only rest. Only quiet continuation beneath the surface of awareness. Above, the stars shift slowly across the sky. Their movement is so gradual it cannot be seen in any single moment. But they move nonetheless. Just as the river moves. Just as the land changes with time. Just as every day has moved into night, and every night has moved into day. There is no final break in this rhythm. Only transition. Only return. And somewhere beyond sleep, beyond thought, there is the faint sense that nothing truly leaves. The labor of the day remains in the body. The warmth of the sun remains in memory. The sound of water, the feel of earth, the slow repetition of work, all of it continues quietly inside the rhythm of life. The night deepens further. The settlement becomes part of the wider silence of the world. No movement. No urgency. Only stillness layered over stillness. And the Nile flows on through it all, unchanged, carrying the presence of every moment that has passed beside it. The cycle is complete again. And yet it is never truly finished. Because beneath the night, beneath the silence, beneath even rest itself, the next beginning is already waiting. Soft. Unspoken. Already forming in the quiet before dawn. The night holds steady. Nothing changes quickly here. The darkness remains deep, but not heavy. It feels more like a covering than a weight, something that rests over the land with quiet patience. The settlement sleeps without disturbance. No movement rises from the homes. No voices break the silence. Only the faint, steady rhythm of breathing inside each small space, blending into the larger stillness of the night. The man sleeps. His body is fully at rest now, released from the memory of effort. The day no longer exists to him in any active way. It has become something finished, something placed behind him in the natural flow of time. The woman sleeps as well. Her rest is quiet, uninterrupted. The child remains still, folded into the same calm that fills the room. Outside, the Nile continues its path. It does not grow tired. It does not pause. It moves through the night just as it moved through the day, carrying the land with it in a steady, unbroken line. Its surface reflects only faint traces of light now. Stars scattered across water. Soft and distant. The fields remain unchanged in the dark. Rows of earth rest beneath the sky, holding the marks of labor that shaped them earlier in the day. Nothing moves there now. Everything is settled. The paths between homes are empty. The tools remain where they were left. Even the wind feels quiet, passing gently through reeds without sound. Time moves forward, but without force. Without urgency. Only continuation. Above, the stars maintain their slow, patient motion. They do not speak. They do not signal. They simply remain, marking the passage of hours in silence. And in this silence, everything feels connected. The river. The land. The people. The work. The rest. All part of the same rhythm that has no clear beginning and no final end. The man stirs once more in sleep, then becomes still again. There is no awareness of time passing. Only rest continuing. Only the body holding what the day has left behind. The night deepens further, approaching its quiet center. And yet, even in its deepest stillness, there is no final stopping point. Because this world does not end its rhythm. It only turns. Softly. Steadily. Without interruption. The Nile continues to flow. The land continues to rest. And somewhere beyond the edge of night, beyond the reach of sleep, the first quiet hint of morning already exists, not yet visible, but already part of the cycle that never truly breaks. Everything waits. Not in tension, but in calm continuation. And the world remains still. Until it begins again. The night grows quieter than before, not because silence changes, but because everything within it has fully settled into place. The land is no longer in transition. It is simply at rest. The settlement sleeps. Every home holds its small pocket of stillness. Every body inside them rests in the same slow rhythm, shared without awareness. The day has long ended, and its traces now live only in memory and in the quiet fatigue of the body. The man sleeps deeply. There is no movement now, no shifting of thought. Only calm rest, as if the world has gently set him down and allowed him to remain there without demand. The woman sleeps beside him. The child is still. Outside, the Nile continues its steady motion through the dark. It does not change its pace for night or morning. It does not hold memory of labor or rest. It simply flows, as it always has, carrying time forward in a way that cannot be measured by effort alone. Its surface reflects the final stars of the night. Soft points of light drifting across moving water. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing resists it. The fields remain still under the sky. The soil rests after being shaped and worked. The paths between homes lie empty. The tools of labor rest where they were placed, waiting without urgency for hands that will return to them again. And so the land holds everything in quiet balance. Not finished. Not ended. Only paused within a cycle that continues without needing to be named. Above, the stars begin their slow shift toward the edge of dawn again. It is not yet visible. Not yet light. Only the faintest suggestion that darkness is not permanent. That it always, eventually, becomes something else. Time moves gently here. Without force. Without break. The man breathes in sleep, then becomes still again. The night remains. And within it, everything is held together by the same quiet rhythm that has always existed: the river, the land, the work, the rest, and the return. Nothing is truly separate. Nothing truly ends. It only changes form. Slowly. Softly. Like breath moving through the world itself. And as the night continues its final stretch toward dawn, the story fades not into silence, but into continuation, a cycle without beginning, a cycle without end, flowing endlessly like the Nile beneath the wide and patient sky. The morning arrives again. Not suddenly, not loudly, but the same way it always does, quietly, as if the world is simply remembering how to be seen. Light gathers at the edge of the sky. The Nile catches it first, as it always does, turning the faint glow into a soft reflection that stretches across moving water. The settlement begins to stir. Inside one of the homes, the child wakes earlier than before. There is no clear reason for it. Only the body adjusting to the rhythm of days that have already repeated many times. The air feels cool against the skin. Still carrying the memory of night. The child sits up slowly, looking toward the opening of the home where light is beginning to grow. Outside, movement has not fully begun yet. But it is coming. It always comes. Nearby, the man also wakes. His movements are familiar now, shaped by repetition more than thought. He does not question the timing of the day. It is already known within him, like something learned long ago and never forgotten. He steps outside. The world is again in its earliest form of morning. Soft. Quiet. Unfinished. In the distance, workers begin to gather. Not all at once, but in small, natural streams of movement, paths forming through habit, bodies returning to places they already know. The fields wait. The river flows. And the land holds its steady silence between one cycle and the next. But something small feels different this time. Not in the structure of the world, but in attention. The child watches more closely now. The repetition is no longer only background. It begins to be seen. The rows in the field. The way people move without instruction. The way the river never changes its path. Everything fits together too perfectly to feel separate. And yet no one speaks of it. Because it is simply how things are. The man walks toward the river again. The same path. The same motion. The same water waiting to be touched. And as the sun begins to rise once more, the world continues forward. Not changing its shape, but slowly revealing more of itself to those who notice it a little more each day. The sun rises higher again. Another day, shaped almost exactly like the ones before it. Yet time does not feel entirely the same when it is lived from inside it. In the settlement, movement begins as it always does. People leave their homes. Paths form naturally, without instruction. The river continues its steady flow beside them, unchanged, patient, older than memory itself. The man walks toward the fields once more. His steps follow a rhythm that no longer needs thought. It is not excitement that guides him, and not resistance either. It is simply the shape of life as it has become. Around him, others move in the same pattern. Some younger. Some older. Each carrying their own quiet history within the repetition of labor. The child from the earlier morning now follows at a distance. Not directly working yet, but watching more closely than before. Learning without words. Understanding without explanation. The fields stretch outward under the growing light. Rows already shaped from previous days wait for continuation. The soil does not change quickly here. It remembers what has been done to it. And it responds in small, predictable ways. The man lowers his tool again. The motion is familiar now in a deeper sense than before. Not just repeated, but absorbed into the body itself. Lift. Press. Release. The rhythm continues. But something subtle begins to appear beneath it. Not in the work itself, but in awareness. The child notices how little changes from day to day. How the same hands move in the same patterns. How the river never stops. How the fields never fully end their work. Everything is always continuing. Nothing fully begins. Nothing fully ends. Even rest is part of the same cycle. Even sleep carries the memory of labor. At midday, the pause comes again. The same distribution of food. The same measured water. The same brief stillness before work resumes. But now, the child watches differently. Not only receiving, but observing. Seeing the structure beneath the repetition. In the settlement, the woman continues her tasks. Her movements remain steady, but there is a quiet awareness in her as well. A recognition that time does not move in straight lines here. It moves in circles. In returns. In patterns that repeat so often they become invisible unless one looks closely. The man returns to work after the pause. The sun begins its slow descent again. Shadows stretch once more across the land. And the day continues its familiar path toward evening. But now something small has shifted. Not in the world, but in perception. The cycle is no longer only something lived inside. It is something beginning to be seen. Even if only faintly. Even if only in moments between work and rest. The Nile flows beside it all, unchanged. Carrying light, shadow, and time without distinction. And as the day moves once more toward its ending, everything continues in the same steady rhythm. But with a quiet sense that awareness itself has begun to grow inside it. Like the first faint light before sunrise. Evening arrives again, as it always does. The light softens across the land, spreading long and thin over the fields, the paths, and the still surface of the Nile. The day begins to close itself, not with finality, but with quiet release. In the fields, the man slows his movements. The work is nearing completion for the day, just as it has every day before. Yet something feels slightly more present now within him. Not a change in task, but a change in noticing. He sees the way others move beside him. The same gestures. The same pauses. The same return toward the settlement as the sun lowers. It has always been like this. But now it is felt more clearly. Around him, the workers gather their tools. No one speaks loudly. There is no need. The rhythm of ending is already shared without instruction. At the edge of the field, the observer stands as usual. But even his presence feels less like direction now, and more like part of the landscape itself. Something that belongs to the structure of the day rather than interrupting it. The man begins the walk back. The path is familiar under his feet. Dust rises slightly, then settles again. The sky above deepens in color, shifting toward warm tones that signal the approach of night. In the settlement, preparations for evening continue. Fires are small and steady. Food is simple and shared in quiet spaces. The woman moves through her tasks with the same calm repetition, but her eyes linger slightly longer on the child now. The child watches the light outside. Not just seeing it, but noticing how it changes. How everything changes. Yet also how everything returns. The man arrives home as the sky begins to fade into deeper color. He sits. The weight of the day settles into him, not sharply, but like something familiar taking its place again. Around him, others are already in the same transition. Work has ended. But life has not stopped. It has only shifted. Outside, the Nile reflects the last strong colors of sunset. Gold becomes orange. Orange becomes red. And slowly, everything begins to soften into dusk. There is a quietness in this moment that feels different from night. Not yet fully dark. Not fully complete. A space between movement and rest. The child steps outside briefly. Stands still. Watches the river. Watches the sky. And for a moment, there is no thought of work, or cycle, or repetition. Only the feeling of time passing without being held. Inside, the man rests quietly. The woman sits nearby. The fire glows softly, steady and low. And the settlement slowly begins to enter its night rhythm once again. But now, something subtle remains. A quiet awareness that the pattern is not just something lived. It is something seen. Something that continues whether noticed or not. The Nile flows on in the distance. Unchanged. Unbroken. And as night approaches once more, the world settles again into its familiar silence, but with eyes, now, that begin to understand the shape of the cycle they live within. Night returns again, slowly, without resistance. It does not arrive all at once. It spreads across the sky in layers, softening the last traces of color left by the sunset. The land grows quiet beneath it. The settlement settles into stillness once more. Inside the homes, firelight flickers gently. Small and steady, it does not push back against the darkness. It simply exists within it, giving shape to the space where people rest. The man lies down. His body is familiar now with this rhythm of ending. Work. Return. Rest. The sequence repeats so often that it no longer feels like separate parts of life. It feels like one continuous motion that never fully stops. The woman rests nearby. The child is still. Outside, the Nile continues to move through the night. It reflects no urgency. No change in emotion. Only the steady passage of water under a sky that no longer holds sunlight, but instead carries stars once more. The fields lie quiet. The soil holds its shape. The paths remain empty. Everything that was active has returned to stillness, just as it always does. But something subtle remains within awareness now. Not a disruption. Not a question. Only a quiet sense of recognition. That the same patterns have been lived before. And will be lived again. Not as something to escape. But as something that simply is. The man sleeps. His breathing slow and even. The day dissolves from his mind, leaving only rest behind. Above him, the stars move gently across the sky. Their motion is so slow it cannot be felt in any single moment. Yet over time, they shift. Just as the river shifts. Just as the land shifts. Just as every day becomes night, and every night becomes day again. There is no final point where the cycle ends. Only turning. Only continuation. In the settlement, everything is still now. Not empty. just complete in its pause. Even the air feels unmoving, as if it too is resting between moments. The child, half asleep, feels the rhythm of the world without understanding it. Not in words. Not in thought. But in quiet presence. And somewhere beyond the walls of the home, beyond sleep, beyond the edge of awareness, the faint beginning of another morning already exists. Not visible. Not formed. But waiting within the structure of time itself. The Nile continues forward through the darkness. Carrying everything. Remembering nothing. And the world rests within its flow, unchanged, unbroken, and endlessly returning to itself beneath the wide and silent sky. The night deepens once more. It reaches its quietest point, where sound becomes almost unnecessary and even thought feels distant, as if the world itself is resting beyond awareness. The settlement sleeps. Every home holds its stillness like a shared breath held between moments. Inside one of them, the man sleeps without movement. His body rests fully, as it has done many times before, shaped by repetition that has become as natural as breathing. The woman rests nearby. The child is still. Nothing in the room changes. Nothing needs to. Outside, the Nile continues its motion through the dark. It does not pause for rest. It does not change its direction. It simply moves forward, carrying the reflection of stars that appear and fade across its surface. The fields remain quiet in the distance. The soil, once shaped by many hands during the day, now lies undisturbed. Paths that were filled with movement are empty again. Even memory of motion seems softened under the weight of night. Time continues, but gently. Without sharp edges. Without urgency. The man stirs once in sleep, then becomes still again. There is no sense of beginning or ending inside him now. Only rest. Only continuation beneath rest. Above, the stars shift in their slow, almost invisible way. They have always moved like this. Long before this night. Long before this settlement. Long before any single life within it began to follow the rhythm of labor and return. And they will continue long after. The land does not resist this cycle. It holds it. It carries it. Day becomes night. Night becomes day. Work becomes rest. Rest becomes return. Again. And again. And again. Not as repetition in a mechanical sense, but as the natural structure of life itself here. In the distance, the Nile flows steadily through the darkness. It connects every moment without needing to explain it. It is always moving. Always present. Always the same. And yet never exactly the same. Inside the settlement, nothing stirs now. The silence is complete. Not empty. But full. Full of all the days that have passed before this one. And all the days that will come after. The man sleeps. The woman sleeps. The child sleeps. And the world holds them gently within its long, unbroken rhythm. Not ending. Not beginning. Only turning quietly toward whatever comes next. And in that turning, everything remains. Still. Whole. And endlessly continuing beneath the wide, patient sky. The night begins to soften again. Not abruptly, but in the quietest way possible. A faint change gathers at the far edge of the sky, where darkness is no longer as complete as it was before. It is subtle enough to go unnoticed at first, like a thought that has not yet formed. The settlement remains asleep. Everything is still. The man sleeps deeply, his body unchanged in position, his breathing steady and slow. The woman rests beside him. The child remains quiet. Inside the home, time feels suspended, as if the night has paused itself for a final moment of stillness before the world begins again. Outside, the Nile continues its movement. It does not slow. It does not speed. It simply flows forward, as it always has, carrying the reflection of a sky that is beginning to lose its deepest darkness. Stars remain visible, but faintly now, as if stepping backward into distance. The first suggestion of dawn is not yet light. It is only a thinning. A soft easing of night's hold on the world. Across the land, nothing stirs yet. But the change is already present in the structure of the moment. It exists before action. Before movement. Before awareness returns. The man shifts slightly in sleep. A small motion. Then stillness again. There is no interruption to rest. Only the body responding, as it always does, to the quiet turning of time. The fields remain silent in the distance. The soil waits. The paths remain empty. Everything is held in place, as if the world is breathing slowly between one cycle and the next. Above, the sky continues its gradual transformation. Night does not leave quickly here. It fades. Layer by layer. Softly releasing its hold on the land. And beneath it, something familiar begins to return, not yet fully formed, but present in feeling rather than sight. The suggestion of morning. The return of light that has not yet arrived. Inside the home, the man remains asleep. But the cycle is already turning around him. Not through effort. Not through decision. But through the simple, steady structure of time itself. The Nile flows on, unchanged. And yet everything around it is always changing. This is the nature of the place. Not beginning. Not ending. Only continuation. And as the final darkness of night begins to loosen its grip, the world waits quietly for the first light that will come again, just as it always has, and just as it always will. And so the story settles into its final stillness. The night does not end suddenly. It simply becomes softer, quieter, as if the world has finished speaking and now chooses only to breathe. The settlement remains asleep. The man, the woman, the child, each resting in their own quiet place, carry no awareness of endings or beginnings now. Only rest. Only calm. Outside, the Nile continues its endless movement. It does not belong to any single day. It does not hold memory in the way people do. It flows forward, unchanged in its nature, carrying the land through time without ever needing to announce where one moment ends and another begins. Above it, the last stars of the night begin to fade. Not as an ending, but as a return. The sky slowly lightens at the edge of the horizon, just enough to suggest that morning will come again. But nothing arrives yet. Only the quiet in between. Only the pause that holds everything gently in place. The fields remain still. The paths remain empty. The homes remain warm with sleep. And the world rests in the same rhythm it has always known: work and rest, light and dark, river and land, returning endlessly into itself. There is no final moment that declares completion. No last word that needs to be spoken. Only continuation, already waiting beneath silence. And in that silence, everything remains whole. The night holds the world softly for a little longer. Then, without notice, it simply becomes part of the next beginning. And the story fades not into an ending, but into the same quiet flow that was there all along.